Today's really a wonderful opportunity, both to be promoting the U.S.-Japan relationship and the grassroots connection portion that is the core of everything we do, but also to learn about an activity that is being done very successfully for several years by one of our societies, the Japan-American Society of Kentucky, a group travel program known as Discovery Japan Tours that David Carpenter and Amy Zhu have patented, if you will, and grown into a franchise where they're now leading 4 groups per year. They're oversubscribed. They don't need to market because word of mouth is about all they need. And not only are doing good work for the grassroots people-to-people relationship, but they are also doing something that's good for their societies financially. And so from those 2 angles, we wanted to have the chance to share as one model the experience of Discovery Japan Tours. So David's been very generous to agree to share the trade secrets and the lessons learned over his last couple of years. The other thing we do today is launch a new series with a funny name, NAJAS Share. NAJAS. I don't know how we're going to pronounce it, but this is a series which, as the flyer promotes, is to promote best practice sharing, innovative programs like this travel one, and to maybe also bring in new partners that we've developed in one part of the network that we can share with others. So we're trying to do this in a very simple fashion, kind of a lunch and learn program, low cost, high frequency. We'd love to do it bi-weekly if we can. This is not brand new. Peter Kelly was doing this, I think, as a virtue, making a virtue of a necessity back in the COVID days when you folks got together because there were no physical activities happening in those years. So this is kind of returning to that idea. And it's not the only way we come together to share, of course. Annual meeting, which I started out mentioning, is the biggest area where we do this best practice sharing. We've started up recently the Slack platform, which is kind of a way to carry forward some of those discussions that after the annual meeting. And I think that I would like to try to see what NAJAS can do just to help with more between society content sharing, if you will. And so this is also part of what we've asked Niles to do, Niles Rogers, as part of his fellowship. How can we share more of the very valuable, rather expensive sometimes, content that we develop with these expert speakers? How can we get it in front of more audiences? How can we harvest what we learned coming through out of COVID? Person to person is primary, but how can we harvest the technology? So this NAJAS Share is a part of that. You heard the Zoom disclosure. We're recording the session, and we ask you to be aware of that. And we're going to do our best to edit that material down and make it available to folks who couldn't join us today, who learn after the fact what a great opportunity this is and want to learn more about it. A couple of weeks ago, while I was in Japan, we did a short webinar on the craft area, and a similar number of folks from around the country attended that to learn how we can support the preservation of master crafts in Japan. We have this session as our kickoff, number 1. We already have on the books a discussion of sake-themed promotions, and Makiko, Niles, and I are fresh off a very nice session at Capitol Hill that the Sake Brewers Association of North America hosted along with Japan-American Society of Washington, D.C., and the Virginia Society that we just got to meet. And we'll carry that forward and share some more notes. Chip Myers, who those of you who are at the annual meeting, has done some great work in that area, and Chip will again share what he learned. Baseball, the Japan-related Foreign Players Association will hopefully share a bit about baseball diplomacy, SMEs, what you folks want to bring to the table we're happy to add to this new series, NAJAS Share. So that's what we're all about today, is the launch. A couple housekeepings. I mentioned that we're recording. David's got a real interesting project to share with you, and it really is he's the first estate, not rocket science, but patiently and insightfully learned a set of relationships and approaches that can be very flexible. So he's not offering you a recipe book; he's offering you an experience, and he's doing this for the network in first regard, because we're not competitors in working for these grassroots connections. We're drawing from the entire North American continent, and there's plenty of room for travel to be expanded. There are some things that, in particular, when you get into some fine cost information, that David's more comfortable sharing after the fact by email. So he'll explain how we can do that and why there's just a little bit of sensitivity, but we'd like to proceed that way. David will speak for about 30 minutes, and then we have some Q&A. If I could, just a last set of observations. You folks have been watching what's been happening macro-wise on the travel market. I'm hearing something about a 450% growth year on year in Japan's inbound tourism. People expected it to snap back after the doors were closed until October of last year, but I don't think anybody expected it to develop quite as fast as it is. I hit Japan in 2012, and we were at about 8 million tourists a year. I watched it nearly triple by the time I left 5 years later. A peak was hit in 2019 of something like, I think, 32 million tourists, and we're slated to come in over 21 million. And I'm quite sure that with these kinds of trend lines, we'll see the numbers very soon hit the peak levels. But more importantly, the other point I was going to make is the nature. It's not just a quantitative game, it's a qualitative game. As I've been just reading and looking around on my recent trip, the type of people who are going to Japan and the reasons they go to Japan are also developing, and I think in good directions for us. These are people who are not just bucket list checkers. They have some knowledge of Japan. They have some interests they want to pursue. And that really plays to our strengths in a grassroots network, with the connections we have to so many pursuits and disciplines and interests. And I ticked off of some of them, like cuisine, like sports. There's so many more things we can bring. So we're pushing on an open door in terms of the quantitative flow. We've got a huge tailwind coming at us from the depreciation of the yen. Japan was exciting, safe, fun destination, and now a new adjective gets added, and that is affordable, which I think is also a game changer. So enough from me. Now you want to hear from the guy who's been working very hard to put together this successful program, our president and CEO of JAS Kentucky, David Carpenter. David's been at that. He's been with the society, I think, more than a dozen years, and most of that now as president, after he, initially came in as executive director. I already mentioned that Amy Sue is his partner in crime. David's based in Lexington, Kentucky, and Amy's in Louisville, giving some good geographic coverage of the state. A dozen years with the society. David also has about a dozen doing community relations, public relations with Toyota in Georgetown. Also about 5 years living in Japan. Most of that, I believe, Nagasaki, an important tourism area where he got involved in that activity with the authorities. So you may or may not know David for all of those things, but I'm sure those of us in the community also know him as a personality, a charismatic figure, a real leader. It's no surprise to me that this successful program came under David's initiative, and leadership. So with that, David, I'd like to turn the floor over to you to tell us about Discovery Japan Tours, the JAS Kentucky way.
Great. Thanks, Andy. I really appreciate your words and your leadership so far. In October, I was standing out in front of the Imperial Hotel, and here comes Andy. I was like, oh my God, small world. So he's like, what are you doing here? And I was like, what are you doing here? So we were able to, and I had expressed that several of the society members, and it's great to see many friends on here who have heard of our program and then was asking questions about it. And so we had talked about what is the best way to share that with the network to do. I'm going to share if Mamiko-san can give me sharing rights. Or someone give me sharing rights. Oh, there we go. I want to go over kind of how we ended up doing this program, why we started it, and just some basic logistics to the trip and some of the lessons that we've learned. So I would say my first trip was in 2017. Several people kept asking about going to Japan and wanting to go to Japan. So as I was helping people plan their trips and putting agendas together for individuals or couples or people that were going to Japan, I had noticed that the expense of going to Japan is quite heavy. So on average, the trip that we do if it's through a travel agency through Japan, was anywhere between $10,000 and $12,000 a person. So when I went through and looked at what was the details of the agendas and the trips, I was like, well, I can do that. Well, I can do that. I don't need somebody to meet me at the train station to walk me across the street to the hotel. I can do that. So the price of things started lowering less and less and less. And I thought, well, I could probably do this trip on a grassroots, not even to make profit, but just to do a trip, because I had several friends, close friends, that wanted to go to Japan. So there were 8 of us. So I decided, hey, we'll give it a try. I put the trip together. It was somewhat challenging, but we kind of learned our way through, and then came back and was like, oh, I made a pretty good profit off of this, and it really didn't cost that much. So from there, we decided just to do one trip and to promote it to the society. And our max was 15 people. Long story short, it ended up being like 26 people that wanted to go. So we started doing the trips, and then, as I said, lessons learned. So that's why and how we started the program. Logistically, so when I came back to my board and said, hey, this is a new program, this is something that the demand is, we're doing cross-cultural related things. Can we make this a regular program? And they said, sure. So after our first one, and they saw how successful it was, they said, oh, you can do this twice a year. And then from there, they said 4 times a year. So because we had already got it down. So we picked, and you could do it at any time. This is a preference of what we wanted. May and October, weather-wise, was amazing. And temperature-wise. So if you wanted to show off Japan, these were good times to do it. So we had started a trip of 9 days and expanded it to 11 days because of the travel times. And then having the staff, we're able to do 2 groups in May and 2 groups in October, which prevented us from having to go over 4 times. We only had to go over 2 times. We also have the advantage, because of our Genjay, who worked for us, lives in Japan, and she continues to teach some of our Japanese classes, was also available and wanted to support because she had already developed those relationships. So those who have had the Genjay, even the Joy program coordinators, this is a way for us that we were able to re-engage those people that we have already had a relationship back with the society. What's included in our trip? Airfare, hotel, land transportation, meals, and guided tours. Okay. One of the things that I was able to do, and several of the societies has done this, is that we have developed a partnership with our airlines. And I know that, I don't know if anybody else does it in the manner that we do it, but we put out there the opportunity for several of the major airlines to be the official airline of the Japan America Society. And what that entailed was, and I can share those sponsorship packets with you, as in, this is what it would cost to do that. And basically what it is, we put your name on everything. And as our trips had expanded, the airlines had noticed that we were booking a lot of airline tickets, and they became very competitive. So when I put the word out there, after COVID especially, our first airline, which was United, said, oh, we don't do sponsorships right now. Delta was ours. So I sent it to Delta, and Delta jumped on it. United found out about it, and then United came back, and they went on a bidding war. So we ended up getting Delta as our official sponsor, and they give us business class tickets to Japan and domestic tickets that we use to give away or sell or whatnot. They also gave me 3 gold medallion upgrades to do. So that's something else, and it may be another topic, as in how do you negotiate with vendors in getting the most benefit out of for them and for us. So we do air from Kentucky. As recommendations as we go through this, we have learned that you want as many people as possible on the same flight. We do allow people to book their own flights, but they're under the understanding that if their flights are delayed or there's issues with their flights, it's on them to get to us. So we push all of our travelers to be on the same flight that we book. So we do a group ticket. And our group tickets, we do those several months in advance to a year in advance. And we reserve 15 economy tickets with the possibility of upgrading those tickets. So I do 15 economy tickets. People that we know that want to go business class, because we always have people that want to go business class. I can negotiate, and I will do up to 4 or 5 reservation holds for those business class tickets. And they are typically cheaper than they are when you buy those because they're part of the group ticket. A group ticket has to have at least 10 people. If you go under 10, it's no longer a group ticket. So you have to have at least 10 people committed. And if you don't, then you can cancel that without penalty within the date that the airline requires. We use American Express as our vendor for airline tickets, because we have learned, because of experience, when there's an issue and you've got 15 people on a ticket, calling the airline is extremely frustrating. We have learned calling American Express, it puts it all back on them, and they have their own connections and numbers to call. So, for example, during COVID, we were still successful and able to go because we were able to get visas We were the only people in Japan. Flights were canceled. We called American Express and they were able to take care of everything. So just the fact of having that business card, which is like $600 a year, paid for itself in doing these trips. You also get the benefits of, for us, we get 5 times the miles on any travel that we book. So we have a surplus of numbers. So we, for the hotels, which are included, we use a travel agent that books all of our hotels except for our hotel in Tokyo. And we use the Imperial Hotel. And we are able to utilize the NAJAS rate for that hotel. And we were able to negotiate a little bit better rate than the NAJAS because they know the number of tickets, that the number of rooms that we're reserving, and the price. It includes the breakfast. We also include all the land transportation, the Shinkansen. So our trip is, we go to 5 different areas of Japan. We do Tokyo, Kyoto, Hiroshima, Fukuoka, Nagasaki. And we used to do a rail pass, a JR rail pass green card. But once we priced it out, it was cheaper to buy the tickets a la carte in the green car than it was being able to do the rail pass. The rail pass is good if you're individual, but when you're at a group, it is a chore to take 15 people to the train station with your passport to fill out all the information. And then when you have to go buy your tickets, you have to take everybody's passport, and everybody's has to go to the train station each time when you buy your tickets, your bullet train tickets, versus we were able to just go to the train station and buy everybody's tickets for everything for the entire time. We go 1 or 2 days before and we have everything ready and set. So when they get off the plane, all of our hotels include breakfast. The other hotels, which we have stayed in a dozen different hotels, we have found the hotels that we like that are close to the train station that meet the needs for everybody. We've had hotels where we've had to walk a half a mile or we've had to take a bus to, but we have identified the hotels that we like that are at the station. And then the guided tour, all the emissions is included onto the trip. How many people can we take on each trip? We take 15 people. I will take up to 20 if push comes to shove, but we have found 15 is a good number to do. As I said, how many trips do we take each year? We take up to 4 trips. And then who conducts and leads the tours? One of the reasons that we have been successful in this, as I stated earlier, is that myself living in Japan, Amy had lived in Japan, we have a basic grasp of the language. We're able to do a lot of the things ourselves that you don't have to pay a tour guide to do. So, was there?
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
While we're focused on the airline part of it, when you say you reserve 15 tickets in advance through Amex, are you actually paying for the 15 tickets in advance? It's after you have commitments from your travelers.
Yes. So American Express group travel. So if you book any tickets above 9 tickets, you can't do that on American Express. They will refer you to. And we have had several people, but I have my person, Kirsten, who I just now call direct, and she knows exactly what I want and does it. So you have up to, I want to say, a month or so before to make changes to those tickets. So the way that works is you have, I think, 2 months without penalty. If you go under that 10, then there's a bigger penalty, but it's like $100 cancellation fee. So I've never not used the tickets because I've always had all my tickets used, or I could drop it if I've got two people saying, oh, I'm going on the trip, but I want to use miles and I'm going to book my own ticket. So I can tell Kirsten, go ahead and drop 2 of those tickets. And she does. So my average price of a ticket is anywhere from $1,000 to $1,200 a ticket.
And then when you submit the names of the travelers and like passport numbers, all that, do you submit that to Amex or to Delta?
Amex.
Okay.
They take care of all of it. And then who goes on the trips? It is a hodgepodge of people. So the first time we did our major first trip, we offered it to board members first. And several of our board members took us up on that because that was kind of, we looked at, here's a benefit to our board members. So a lot of times our board members are involved in the Japanese world, but their family may not be. So we looked at it as in, oh, my husband or my wife's involved with Japan, going to Japan. Oh, now I understand what the big fuss is about and what they're doing. So that was another benefit aspects to do. We have people from all ages take these trips. And we do allow children 11 and above with a parent. You have to be 21 to go on your own as an adult. But if a family's going and they want to bring their child that's under 21, 11 and above, we have found successful. And we've not had any issues with that at all. And we've had several children go on the trip. I want to show you one of the sample agendas. And this is the information that we put out. Ours is, 11 days, 5 cities. We do Tokyo, Kyoto, Hiroshima, Fukuoka, Nagasaki. It includes round trip, hotel, first class guided tours, breakfast, and 5 regional dinners. These are the 5 region cities that we go to, and we do 5 regional different dinners. And you'll see here's kind of a map that we show. And I won't spend a lot of time on this, but I share about the hotels and this and that. We get people there. Some of these had dates. I forgot to remove some of the dates, but the first night we arrive in the Tokyo, and we stay at the Imperial Hotel. Day 2 is a guided bus tour for Tokyo. Our travel agent, Kintetsu, is who we use. We use the same tour guides every time now because they know who we like. They know exactly what we're doing and what we want to do. And we've developed a relationship with them. So they would be more than glad to work with whoever to do this. We do Skytree, and then we do Asukusa area in the temple and the shopping arcade. We've learned that even though we could cover lunch, it's hard to get people together for lunch. They're out and about, and there's lots of places to eat. So lunch is on their own. And then we do Riku Garden, and then we do the Imperial Palace Hotel to see the double bridges, and then we walk back or take the bus back to the Imperial Hotel. It's a 5-minute, 10-minute max walk to do that. This year, we added Team Labs. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, and that's one of the highlights. So what I do is when I've got my 15 people that's interested, we've got to set cities that we go to, but we can customize it based on people's interest. If they're interested in pottery, we go to pottery districts. If we're interested in gardens, we do more Japanese gardens. But in each city, we have a set agenda, but there's an extra day where we can do those alternate tours that people want to do. And then day 3, we don't have to do this. Our fee includes your luggage. You put your luggage outside your room, and then we hire a private truck that takes it to the next hotel in Kyoto. And then we help people on that day set up their special tours that they want to do. And they pay additional fee for that because they may want to go to Tokyo Disney and they pay for that, or a sumo tour or a cooking class or whatnot to do. We go to Tokyo, and the way that I explain it to people, and people love Tokyo, is like when you come to the US, you want to go to New York and see Times Square, you want to see the Empire State Building, you want to see Freedom Center, those types of things like that. So that's what we do Tokyo. Everything else is kind of behind the scenes to do. We have pre-scheduled all of our train tickets, and we know exactly what train we're taking and what platform we're on. And then the hotel in Kyoto, this is a guided tour, same tour guides. She's wonderful. She picks us up. She takes us to all of these places. And then all of our meals, because it costs another like $10 or $15 to add all you can drink to the dinner. And you'll see the breakdown. You guys will freak out when you see the cost of what it cost us to do this. These are tours that we do because we lived in Japan and we know how to do this. Fukushima is 2 train stops on Kyoto Station. So we're able to do it because we know how to get them there. We don't have to hire another tour guide or a bus to do it. We go to Hiroshima. We give you the option. Sometimes you can bring your luggage with you, or we can takyubin it to the next stop, which is Fukuoka, and you pack an overnight bag. From here forward, we do all the tours. So Hiroshima, we go to the Peace Park, we go to Miyajima Island, and then we take the train to Fukuoka. Now, we don't always do all 5 cities. The one that we just came back from because people's interest, we did not do Fukuoka and Nagasaki. We did Nagoya instead because they wanted to go to Toyota City and do the Toyota tours there. So we were able to do that instead. And so we spaced out our Kyoto and Tokyo days. Like I said, each city, Hiroshima is famous for okonomiyaki. So we do an okonomiyaki cooking class, and they love it. And then we go to Fukuoka. We do the tours in Fukuoka. But the big thing about Hiroshima that people like is, and we talk about, and this is the big thing about grassroots, is the atomic bomb museums. And we do Hiroshima and we do Nagasaki. And the great thing is the conversations that we have after the fact about the 2 cities, Japan and US relations, and all of those things. This is the Fukuoka tour. This particular one in October, people were interested in pottery. So we went to Arita and we visited the Kims, the Cories, and then we arrived into Nagasaki, which now has a bullet train that's fairly new that's there. I lived in Nagasaki, so I know how to get around in Nagasaki, but still anybody that lived in Japan can do this. We do the Nagasaki tour of the day, and then we do our dinner. And then we fly back from Nagasaki to Tokyo. Or from the city. We flew from Osaka this time and from Hiroshima because we all went to the last stop this time was in Hiroshima to do. Let me go back to, and I'm sorry if I'm rambling on, but we'll have an opportunity to ask questions here in just a second. How do we promote the trip? We promote it through our membership. We send it out. So this is a benefit of being a member. Community outreach, as I said, our board members, our sponsors, and then past attendees. Basically, it's word of mouth to do. So we do have promotional material and we do include it in our newsletters, but we don't do a big push because we already have, I want to say the next 2 trips in May, more than enough people to do the trip. That's just waiting for the details of the information. How do we control our prices? Part of it is we negotiate. We have a range of what we know that we can spend. And then we base our charge on what it costs to do the trip, what it costs to do the for the staff to go, and then the markup of what we want to make per person. On average, we've decided we make $1,000 to $1,500 a person per trip. The cost to do the trip, and I will email you guys more of this information. Airfare, hotels, including Imperial Hotel. All of our other hotels are nice level hotels. We're able to do this trip around between $3,200 and $3,600 per person for double occupancy. If you're a single, as you know, in Japan, a single for a hotel costs more than versus 2 people. It typically is another $500 on top of the price to cover the expense of a single person. And it's on our website. You can see we normally charge between $5,000 to $5,500 per person to go on the trip. We have an arrangement with the airlines, and the thing is, you guys can still have these same benefits. They don't care, even going through us. We they charge us around $500 to upgrade to Economy Plus, which I think Amy would agree 90% of the people do that because it's another $500 to upgrade. And people that are going on the trip does have some disposable income. We do have students that go, and it is a sacrifice for them. And then they have saved and their parents have helped, but to be able to go on their own, they would have never been able to do it. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. I'm sure there might be lots of questions. We are available. We know that this isn't competition for us. If Claudine is going to do it in Colorado or Glenn in Oregon, it doesn't affect the people in Kentucky that's going. Now, on every trip that we've done, we have had people from other states go, but basically it's because, like on this last trip, her name is Barbie. She lives in Louisville. She's I don't know if she's a widow or divorced or whatnot, but she's an older lady. She invited her sister from North Carolina to go. So her sister flew up to Kentucky and they went together. We had a sister that invited her brother to go. She lives in Kentucky and he lives in Nashville. So he came up and they went together from that. So we had a girl that moved to California that was involved in jazz, Ghislaine. She wanted to go. So she flew from San Diego to Japan and met us. So we've always had those kind of odd people. So we do open it up to anybody that wants to go. And I talked to Andy, those who really want to do a budget, we can do an NAJAS trip and we can teach you and show you the places that we go and how to do it if people are interested in that as well. So that's further conversation that we can have.
David, that was brilliant. What a compact, insightful, clear overview of the path you took and what you learned along the way in just a half an hour. I love that idea. Would volunteer our office to help go down that path to see if we can't come up with the NAJAS tire kicking behind the scenes tour so that we could experience it directly. I had a question or two, but I think there's going to be more from the field. So why don't we open it up and just raise your hand, and then David can field your questions. If people are getting settled with thoughts, I would kick off, David, with the thought that I was suggesting. You are meeting the needs and the interest, and the experience speaks for itself. You've sold out for the May trips already. But if some of the network were interested in developing verticals, so not just a day of pottery, but a pottery tour, a distillery tour, a sake tour, would you see room for doing more verticals and
Yes.
developing something other than a general tourism trip?
Yes, we've done all of that. On the last trip, we did the sake in Kyoto. We did the sake brewery tours to do. So it's really wide open, and we don't hold people to the agenda. So if you don't want to go to Skytree, you can go do whatever you want. So people like that flexibility too, that they don't have to stay with the tour. They can go do whatever they want. You know, we've learned, for example, every hotel that we stay in, and we can continue conversations, and I can share the more details, is I print out a card with the hotel address on it in English and Japanese, and everybody has that. So if you're out and about and you get lost, or you don't want to stay with the group, you can always just give that to the taxi cab driver and they can get you back to the hotel. Since we stay at the train station area, all you got to do is get back to the train station. So it's really flexible. If someone wants to do something the rest of the group's not doing, then they can go off and do what they want.
Super.
And we build in free time. We have scheduled stuff, but we have learned that people want shopping and free time to do what they want to do.
See, we got a trio lined up of Graham, Michi, and Eli. Why don't we take them in that order?
Dave, thanks for that. That was great. Lovely to see you. Missed you in Columbus.
Yeah, sorry.
Hopefully next year, right, Andy? So quick question. Obviously you have a system, so to speak, now, and it's taken you a little bit of time to develop that. Do you have any idea? I don't know if you track your hours at all in terms of how much staff time does it take to put this together as a whole package?
If you're doing it on your own, I mean, you're welcome to do my packet if it saves time. Initially, it took a lot of time. And it took trial and error. So it meant going over and kind of learning the mistakes of what to do and not to do, as in which restaurants to go to, which ones not to go to, which hotels to stay in, which hotels not to stay in. So we've done it so many times now, we kind of have our pattern of what we know works for us. I think that would be a good starting point because we've already done a lot of that. And then you can customize it based on what your group wants and to do. I will say the word will get out there. We were approached by 2 different groups. Each time I said I wouldn't do it again. Leadership Kentucky wanted it to be an alumni trip. And I had like 30 people on that trip. And then the group, the Kentucky Chamber of Commerce, who our office is located in, their current president was from the Japanese world. So they decided to do a board trip. They do an international board trip every year, and they decided to do Japan. And it was 45 people. And it was a nightmare. But I made $40,000 off of them. It sucked for 10 days, but it was a big reward. So you're going to get those types of things too. So you'll have to evaluate. I wouldn't recommend doing those until you've done a couple of the trips.
Super. Michi, you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for this, first of all. Very excited about trying this in North Carolina. Some nitpicky questions. So, traveling with a group, I know, is always a challenge. How is the whole immigration customs process for you as a group? And also, do you limit people's luggage, like just one large luggage or anything like that? Do you have any recommendations there?
And I will provide the group. We have an information packet that we send that tells you everything, like electricity, what to take, what not to take, what you can buy, what you can't buy, and this and that. I tell people, because there's a group of 15, I am not carrying your luggage because I have my own luggage to carry. So all of our people typically now is they take one bag each is our recommendation. And I would say 50% or more take only a carry-on bag. And then every person, I would say 85 to 90% of every person that goes on the trip buys another piece of luggage at Don Quixote to put all their stuff in. And I tell them it's very inexpensive. Get your basic stuff over there because you're going to buy a bunch of stuff and then you just buy another suitcase and bring it back. And then going through customs is easy. It's easy. I mean, they're on their own, you know. The thing is frustrating is people that haven't traveled. And this, I get it every single time. Why is my TSA number not on my Japan ticket? And I'm like, because Japan is not the United States Transportation Authority. It does not work in Japan. So you don't get pre-check in Japan. So you have to deal with stuff like that, you know. And my global entry, well, that's on the US side. It's not on the, you know, the Japan side, you know. So things like that you have to deal with, but you just smack them.
Thanks so much.
Have a whacking stick.
Well, also,
it's the flag, and Amy will say it, and you will get whacked if you step out of line. So we do an orientation, at least 2 orientations before the trip, in person and or online, and we go through the details because when I say meet in the lobby at 8:30, that means be in the lobby at 8:30 because the train leaves at 8:42 and it's not going to wait on you. And you've got 15 other people that's counting on you. And if you miss your train, you've got to get to the next stop yourself. I just scare them. I really don't leave them, but they don't know that. So everybody has always shown up. It's been giddy at times, but we've all made it.
I was going to say, I think it's the orientation that really helps make the process smooth. Getting through customs and immigration, we help them understand what to expect. And then some of them, after the orientation, they'll message us privately with more information, like with more questions. And that helps the process go pretty smoothly.
And we give them, like in our orientation packet, the immigration paperwork is already filled out. So they just have to copy it over. Which we forgot this time, a lot of times if I'm on the plane, I'll ask for a packet of those and I'll have them already filled out and they give it to them at the orientation that they don't have to worry about in the custom forms.
Very
and
handy.
you can now do it digitally in Japan, which expedites it as well.
Super. Thank you. Over to Eli.
Hi, David. Thank you so much for the presentation today. It's fantastic information. I had a quick question about risk mitigation. Do you require travelers insurance? And if so, do you have a recommended company or provider that you would use?
We don't require it. we give the option. It's a additional price. And we also do that through American Express. So American Express gives us the company, and it's based on the amount of the trip. It's not real expensive. It's anywhere between $100 and $150. And that includes the medical and all of those issues. We do have people that get sick on the trip. Amy can testify to that. In October, my first group, we had one girl that got COVID. And we just isolated her for her 3 or 4 days. And then she wore a mask and then was able to join the group back to do. But we
Also, in the first group, I had to take another person to the ER, and she chose not to have the insurance, buy traveler's insurance. We went to the ER, spent the night there really, and her bill was like $100. So she was pretty happy with that. So that includes the consultation and the treatment and the medicine that she left with. So
Yeah,
she was
had a
totally
UTI.
fine.
Yeah, she had a UTI, so she was miserable.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
But we haven't we haven't had anybody that got hurt or sick, or, Japan's safe and clean and efficient, and, you can pretty much eat anything.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
And we
Maybe-
put that in the packet too, of what medicines to take with you. And then we do a first aid kit of Tums and acids and those types of things too.
Next, we'll roll over to the only guy that I see newer than me on the block. That's Seth. Who, those of you who weren't in Columbus, they did a lovely job hosting us. And Seth is the new ED for JASCO. Go ahead, Seth.
David, thank you very much for the presentation. That was incredibly informative. So my question is, you had mentioned that you and your staff fly over before, like a day or two before the tour group. Is there any staff that flies with the tour group, or do you just meet them at the airport in Tokyo?
We meet them at the airport.
Okay.
So those who already know me, and you'll get to know me more as the thing, I'm pretty high maintenance. So I want over jet lag. I typically go 3 or 4 days before, so I can get situated. Because Amy lived in Japan also, she normally goes like a week advance, and she goes and visits her host family and those things like that. So it's just kind of an advantage for us. I do fly home with them to do. Now, I will admit that I also go separate because I fly business class. So I have also made the connections where I get a really good price, and I can share that with you guys too on business class tickets. So on this trip, I went business class on ANA, and my ticket was right over $4,000, which is unheard of. But because I had 2 groups, that's $2,000, really. So it more than enough paid for itself. And then I let Amy fly economy, premium economy. So it's up to you to do.
Are there more questions out there?
But we've not had any issues. Once people get on that flight, they're all together and they all know each other. So we just wait for them as they come out of customs. But we also do charge extras for pocket Wi-Fi's. We encourage people to do pocket Wi-Fi's. But as soon as, and that we use WhatsApp is the app that we use. But as soon as they land, and of course we're tracking their flight, we can start texting. We're here and we're going through customs to do.
For people who are more technologically inclined, I've been encouraging them to get eSIMs. You just download the app It's so easy. You don't even have to get anything. And once you land in Japan, you can use it. I think 10 gigabytes of data was $18 for 30 days. 20 gigabytes is $26. So it's very affordable. But for those people who don't know how to use their phone so much, I definitely encourage the pocket Wi-Fi.
Grace,
I
I saw
think the tourism has become so popular that a lot of not all of them, but a lot of the hotels now give you a cell phone in the room that you can take with you.
David, do you and Amy usually partner in leading the groups or separate and each of you take different groups, or how do you structure that?
We've done it a number of ways. Typically, Amy and I are together, and because, I'll confess, because I take more than 15 people, because people beg, can I go? So when I'm above 15 people, I can justify 2 people going. But if it's less than 15, then one person, and then our Jinjay typically joins just because she wants to and we want to see her. But we're trying to figure out how to do next year, because if we've got 2 trips in May and 2 trips in October, and if we keep our numbers, then we're looking at maybe Amy doing the May and I do the October. So we're both not being gone at the same time. But when you think about it, if you're doing 15, 15, 15, 15, that's 60 grand profit. So our board doesn't care as long as we're getting everything done. It's a huge revenue for us now.
There were times on the trip that we split. Like, for example, for dinner, some of the restaurants can't have 20 people in the restaurant. So maybe David would take 10 and I would take 10 people. And I will say what was really nice is that when we're walking in a line or in a group, it's always nice to have one person in front and one person at the tail to kind of handle stuff, especially at the train stations.
If your Jinjay
Yes.
person gets involved, do you compensate that person?
We do. We pay for her expenses and then we give her a stipend. But that's part of that's included into the markup of the price to do. To be honest, the 2 trips in October, our profit margin was a lot higher because of the exchange rate. And when I checked yesterday, it was 151. So we try to pay for everything when we get there versus prepaying through the travel agent, because the travel agent won't use the same exchange rate that's the current rate. So like at Imperial Hotel, we'll make reservations at our hotels, but then we'll pay for them when we get there because we know the exchange rate is much higher than it would be if we book it and pay for it online. So it was significantly higher this time to do.
Well, folks, we're coming up on an hour, but I bet we could squeeze, unless people need to drop off, we could squeeze in a last question if there's one out there for David, or if David wanted, or Amy wanted to leave some parting wisdom.
But we'll put a packet together to send to everybody that's on the call. It'll be a lot of information, and some of it you can use and some of it's not. But we're available, and then we can start a group conversation. If people are interested in doing a special orientation trip for NAJAS people, we can do that. And then I can also introduce you to our contacts that we have that are extremely accommodating. Our trips are successful because they're really good, they're organized, they're fun, and they're nice. But it's taken us a lot of trial and error to get there to provide that level of service to our people that's going. So as a result, when they come back, they can't believe how much they got for the value. So that's why our trips, another reason they fill up. So, you know, we want to provide you with those same level of stuff that we were able to do. And if you want, we can save some spots on our next trip for NAJAS members that can go along with some of the people that's going, you know, we can do that as well. But I'll talk to Andrew, you know, afterwards, and maybe, you know, we can set an interest or a survey to say who would be interested in going. And we don't have to do it May and October. We can do a special NAJAS one this year or next year, if there's the interest is there. And maybe apply for a grant. I don't know.
That sounds great. Something tells me there's going to be strong interest in replicating this. I can already see it on some of the questions, and I see the wheels turning. So that's great. That's exactly what we were hoping to do, is just share the information, seed some ideas. And as David said, we're ready with follow-up. We're ready to take up more interest in next steps, channel more questions at you. And then a couple quick notes, if I can. This was the kickoff of the NAJAS Share. Let us know what other topics you'd like to do, if the time works, the format works. The whole idea is to serve you folks. So let us know what you're interested, what rhythm, what timing, and the like. And then I feel badly because Graham prompted me, but I think he dropped off the call. But I'd love to share the news that we just set on in the last days, and that is that our NAJAS annual meeting will be taking place in Portland, Oregon, hosted by JAZO. So you heard it here first, and we'll put that word out with the dates. It's the week before Labor Day weekend, so I think that's the 21st, 2nd, or 21st, 3rd of August. So we'll put that information out, but that'll be another great follow-up from JASCO to JAZO. So once again, I'd like to just say thank you very, very much to Amy, to David, for taking the time and being so generous and open to share the information. And to all of you for taking time for our little lunch and learn NAJAS Share session.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Take care.